Hello students, welcome to the GateLectures.com. So today we are going to start video series on research methodology. Okay, so let's start. So the first question arises why we are study this research methodology. Okay, so let's see. From the initialization of your research idea and to the extreme end, the publication of paper, in this whole journey there are so many segments out there. Okay, different segments are there. Like first the idea will come, first the idea of research will come, then literature review is there, then research formulation of research paper is there, study design, conclusion of research, and the interpretation of your result and the publication of your paper. So these are some segments out there, and you have to know what are the functionalities of each and every part. Okay, so for that purpose, everyone should learn research methodology, and it has paramount importance for all of us. Okay, so let's start. The first one is meaning of research. So basically the meaning of research is totally confined in the word like RESEARCH. Okay, so research. So this is R. R is rational way of thinking. What is rational way of thinking? Rational way of thinking is with your experience, with your opinions, with your facts, with your data, you will develop your rational way of thinking. And this rational way of thinking gives you a sound conclusion. Okay, so this is the input and this is the output, the sound conclusion. Now the next one is E. E is expert and exhaustive. You should be a very thorough and complete. You should be a very expert in your knowledge. Now the next one is S. S is search for solution. For any problem, you find the solution. Now the next one is E. E is exactness. Very correct. Now the next one is A. Analytical analysis of your adequate data. R is relationships of facts. You find different facts from your experience, from other people, opinions and all. And in this you find the relationship between among them. Okay. Now the next one is C. C is the careful observation, critical careful recording, or you can say the you have a very constructive aptitude in the whole research. And the next one is H. This is a honesty. Honesty should be there in any kind of research. Okay, so this is H. Now if we talk about in this very simple words, so what is research? Basically research is a scientific and systematic search for appropriate information on a specific topic you choose. Okay, very simple. Now the next one is characteristics of research. We have different characteristics of research. So let's discuss all of them one by one. Now the first one is vision. So vision basically requires clear articulation of goal. Clear articulation of the goal. You should be very clear about your goal. Okay. Now the next one is methodical. Methodical means you should follow a specific plan or procedure in the research. So in the methodical follows a specific plan or procedure. Now the next one is surgical. Let's suppose you have a very big problem and you are not able to solve big problem at once. So what will you do? There is one solution is there. If you have a very big problem like this, you have very big problem. You are divide this problem into sub problems. This is one sub problem, this is one sub problem, this is one sub problem, and this is one sub problem. So you first solve your sub problems, then you go back to your big problem. So these are the sub problems and this is a big problem. Okay, so in the surgical, basically what you will do, you divide your main problem into sub problems. Okay, sub problems. So it will be very easy for you now to first find out the sub problems, find out the sub problem solution, then go back to the big problem. Okay, now the next one is, okay, vision is complete, methodological complete, and the surgical is complete. Now the critical. So in the critical, you should be accept some critical assumptions in the whole research journey. Okay, so critical requires precise judgment, and you have to accept certain kind of assumptions, some certain kind of critical assumptions in the whole search. Okay, next one is analytical. What is analytical? So in the analytical procedures in the gathering of data, whether it is historical, descriptive, and anything. Okay, so in the analytical, you have to follow the analytical procedures in gathering the data. Okay, now the next is empirical. Okay, so empirical is a research is based on the direct experience or your observation by researcher. So this is the empirical part, or you can say each step in the research, has been tested for accuracy and it is based on real life experience. Okay, so we have so in the empirical, this research basically is based on the direct experience or the observation by researcher. Okay, now the next one is logical. So in the logical, you have to be very logical in the whole research journey. So you should follow valid procedures and principles. Okay, now the next one is cyclical. So what does it mean? Let's suppose you start your research with some problem. Okay, and in the whole research journey, you find the solution of your problem, of the first problem, and again you in this solution, after the solution of this problem, you find any other problem. Okay, so it is a cyclical process. Okay, so the research is cyclical process because it starts with the problem and with the problem. Okay, so that some other researcher will going to solve it. Okay, and you also solve it, but you find after the solution you find some other problem also in the research process. So now the next one is reliability. Reliability basically it's a research design and the procedures which enable the researcher to arrive at valid and a very conclusive result. Okay, so in short, you can write it like to it enable to researcher enable the researcher to arrive at valid and conclusive result Okay, now the next one is validity. Validity and reliability are correlated, but you can say validity is more important than the reliability. Okay, so what is validity? Validity basically the strength with which we call a research conclusion assumptions, whether it is true or false. Okay, it's a strength. Validity basically it's a strength with which we call that assumptions, whether the our assumption is true or false, our conclusion is true or false, like this. Okay, so that's it about the characteristics of research. And the next one is characteristics of researcher. Okay, previously we studied about the characteristics of research. Now we study about the characteristics of researcher. Okay, so think like that you are the researcher. Okay, so what are the qualities, what are the characteristics do you have during the entire research process? So the first one is you should be very research oriented. So what does it mean, the research oriented? Okay, so if you are a researcher, you should take care of deep thinking and inquiry about all the things and situations which are keep going around you. Okay, and what are the prudence? So in the prudence, you should be very careful. You should be very careful during conduct your research study, and you should conduct your study at the right time and the right place, wisely, efficiently and economically. Okay, now the next one is healthy criticism. Okay, so if you criticize some other researcher's research, then the criticism should also very very healthy. So the researcher always doubtful as to the truthfulness of the result in the healthy criticism. Now the next one is creative. So the resourceful investigator always create new researches. Okay, so you should be very creative. And the next one is intellectual honest. An intellectual researcher is basically he should be very honest to collect and to gather the data in order to arrive at the honest result. Okay, so these are the some characteristics the researcher should have. Okay, that's it. Now the next one is classification of research. So in the classification of research, basically we divide the research into 4 research. Okay, in the 4 types. So the first type is fundamental research, second one is applied research, third one is action research, and the fourth one is educational research. And further we divide the educational research into different parts, like historical research, second one is qualitative research, third one is quantitative research, and the fourth one is experimental research. Okay, so let's discuss about them one by one. Okay, and this basically classification of research is very important in terms of your exam. Most of the questions arise from this area every year. Okay, so be careful. So the first classification of research is fundamental research. Okay, so just write it down. Fundamental research. So we also called as pure research and the basic research. So the first point is we also called as basic and the pure research. Why we call this it is like pure and basic research? Because it's a very initial research, okay, and the goal of the research is to find out the basic truth, or you can say basic principle about the research, okay. So in this research the research the research is undertaken for the sake of knowledge only, okay, without any intention to apply it in practical, okay. So the basic goal of this fundamental research is to get out some basic truth about your whole problem, and this research is undertaken for the sake of knowledge, okay. Your only goal is to take the knowledge, and you are not interested it to apply in your practical life, okay. So this type of research is carried out in laboratory. So this is the important. So this type of research is carried out in laboratory. What kind of laboratory? Psychological laboratory, okay. And we use different methods in this fundamental research, like sampling, hypothesis, you can say testing. So these are some methods we are using in this laboratory. So the next question arises, what is the use of fundamental research? So the use of fundamental research is in developing developing the theories, okay, or you can say and principles, okay. So in the fundamental research, the researcher will come like a blank-minded, okay, and he started to gather the knowledge as much as he can through anywhere, and he do not have any intentions to apply it in your practical life. He just want to take the knowledge, and this type of research basically is conducted in the laboratory, just like we already discussed that in psychological laboratory. And different methods we are using, like sampling, hypothesizing, testing and all. And what is the usage of the fundamental researchers? We use this kind of research in the theories and to build up the principles, okay. That's it. Now the next one is applied research. Okay. So after the fundamental research, we come in the applied research. So most of the characteristics of the applied research is found in the applied research. So what is the functionality of the applied research? And one more thing I want to tell you, that the applied research is very important. Most of the time questions arrive from this part, applied research, okay. So up in the applied research, it utilizes the principles made by fundamental research, okay. So applied research basically utilizes the principles that are made by that are made by fundamental research. Fundamental research. Next point is while using the principles which are defined by the fundamental research, we are going to the to find the best possible solutions we can. Okay, so this type of research involves finding of new application of scientific knowledge to the solution of a problem. Okay, so we utilize the principles which are made by the fundamental research to know the problem with best possible manner, and after that we with this type of research we involve the finding of new applications of scientific knowledge to get the solutions of a problem, and we solve the practical problems of modern world rather than just take the knowledge only. Okay, so we solve the practical problems in the life. Like in the fundamental research, we are only taking the knowledge, we are not applying it into a practical life. But in the applied research, the name only suggests that we applied our research in the practical world. Okay, so the example of the applied research is like educational research, or the next example is like marketing research. So the main point is we applied this research in the practical problems, unlike the fundamental research. So that's it about the applied research. And one more research is there which is related to the applied research. Okay, so let's discuss it here only. The research is evaluation research. Most of the time questions come from this area also. What is evaluation research, or you can say evaluation study? Okay, so what is evaluation study? So this is a type of applied research. This study is a type of applied research. This study is a type of applied research, and basically in this we are to take the effectiveness of social or in the economic programs. Okay, we are taking the stock to know the effectiveness of your social and economic programs. Like take the one example like family planning scheme. Okay, so in that case we evaluate and we study the whole data from your city and from your particular area. So in that kind of research you are using the evaluation study. So example like family planning scheme, and it's a type of applied research, because you are applying your in the real life you are applying your research. So it's a type of evaluation study. Okay, so the next one is we already studied fundamental research, then we studied applied research. In the applied research we studied evaluation study, which is a type of applied research. Now the next one is action research. as the name suggests that we take some action in this research. Okay, so what kind of actions we take, and from where we are taking the actions. Okay, so many questions are there. So in this research, the aim of this research is to solve an immediate application, and in this we are not developed any theory. In this research we are not going to develop any theory. Now the next point is, if the researcher finds any problem at his or her field, or in the investigation, researcher applies action research. Okay, so let's suppose you are working in a specified field, and you get into some problem. Okay, and you want some immediate action. That immediate action is applied by the action research. Okay, action research basically is not used for the develop any theory. It's useful to solve the immediate applications which is faced by some researchers find in their particular area. Okay, so this is the action research. Now the next one is educational research. In the educational research, we have studied previously. We have studied fundamental research, applied research, action research, and now we are studying educational research. Okay, and in the educational research, we classified the educational research into 4 parts. First one is historical research, second one is qualitative research, third one is quantitative research, and the fourth one is experimental research. Okay, so let's take some brief knowledge about the educational research, then we'll come to the historical research. Okay, so what is educational research? So in the educational research, basically it directed towards the development of science of behavior in educational situations. Okay, so as we have studied that, we classified further the educational research in different parts. The first part is historical research, right? Historical research. So what is historical research? Okay, so historical research, as a name suggests, it talks about past events, right? It talks about past. And in this historical research, we need investigations, we need recordings, we need analyzing of data, we need interpreting the results of past for the purpose of discovery. Okay, so in this we need the whole combination of investigation, recording, analysis, and interpreting of results for past for the purpose of research, or you can say discovery. Okay, now the next one is qualitative descriptive research and the quantitative descriptive research. Okay, so before going to the quantitative and qualitative descriptive research, let's talk about the descriptive study. So in exams, most of the times you find that the name is ex post fact research. Okay. So in the descriptive study, in social science and in the business research, we oftenly used the term is ex post fact research. Okay. So this is the descriptive study. In the business research and social science, we basically use this term ex post fact research. This is important. Most of the time questions also come from this area also. So in the descriptive study, researcher basically has no control over the variables, and the reason is because he makes this study on the basis of the research which already exists. So what he is doing in this descriptive study, he can only report, he or she, you can say the researcher only report what has happened, or what is happening, or what is happening. And the methods we use in the descriptive study is surveys. So surveys is the method we used in the descriptive study. Okay. Now the next one is diagnostic. Okay, let's use different pen. Next one is diagnostic study. So what is diagnostic study? Basically, diagnostic study is kind of similar with to descriptive study. Okay, it's a kind of similar to descriptive study, and you can say but with different focus. But it is dissimilar with different focus, but dissimilar with different focus. Okay. So what is a different focus? We are using the diagnostic study, which we are not using in the descriptive study. The different focuses, listen very carefully. It is what the question is, why is it happen? Okay. And the second question is what can be done about it? What can be done about it? Okay, so these are the two questions. We are giving the solutions in this diagnostic study. So the first question is, why is it happen? In the descriptive study, the questions are like, what has happened and what is happening nowadays. Okay, and in the diagnostic study, these questions are also there, what has happened and what is happening, but after that some more questions are also arise, like why is it happen and what can be done about it. It means that it aims at identify cause of the problem and gives possible solutions as much as it can. Okay, so why is it happen and what can be done about it. So basically this problem, diagnostic study, wait a minute. So the diagnostic study will gives you the aim at identify the cause of the problem and give the possible solution, right? Now the next one is quantitative descriptive research and the qualitative descriptive research. Okay, so the first one, the first difference is between the quantitative and the qualitative. Okay, the first one is the quantitative basically assume the world is sustainable. Okay, it assume the world is sustainable. It means that we can measure the data in this whole world. Okay, and opposite in the qualitative descriptive research is it assumes that world is unstable. It means the idea of one people will be different from the another. Okay, first thing you have to write is in this quantitative descriptive research, we analyze the data statistically analyze. Okay, so it is a phenomena that can be quantified, and it works with the data collections with the numbers. And basically this quantitative descriptive research mainly in the form of in the question answers form, like questionnaire, like checklist, like your surveys. Okay, and that's the reason we say that the this quantitative descriptive research. So the qualitative descriptive research basically used in behavioral science. Okay, so whose behavior it's going to research, like human behavior, right? So so it basically in the form of this qualitative descriptive research in the form of interviews, and you can say observations, and you can see that these two like interviews and observations are not measurable. Okay, like questions, checklist, surveys, we can measure it, and in the qualitative we cannot measure it, we just analyze the behavior. So in this we assume that the world is unstable. What does it mean? It means that the qualitative descriptive research gives the theory that the idea of one people is different from one another, so we cannot measure it, and we we're going to research through the behavior of different humans. We are taking the interviews, we are through some observations we can doing our research in this way. Okay, so this is the main difference between the quantitative descriptive research and the qualitative descriptive research. Now the next one is, the last one is experimental research. So what is the experimental research? As the name suggests, it describes what will happen in the future if certain variables are carefully controlled and manipulated. So this kind of research, the future research, will come under the experimental research. And the one more research is there. The name is exploratory research. Okay, so what is the exploratory research? Exploratory research, it is a preliminary study of an unfamiliar problem about which researcher has no knowledge, or you can say little knowledge about that problem. Okay, so that kind of research is exploratory research, and its aims of development of hypothesis rather than testing. So this is the exploratory research. Okay, so that's it about the types of research. Going back to the classification of research in the fundamental research, these are the pure and the basic research. Basically, in this research, our aim is to get the knowledge as much as we can. We are not doing applied this kind of research into a practical life. Now the next one is applied research. The name suggests that we are applying our research in the practical life. Okay, and the next one is action research. We want some kind of actions. If we are doing some research in a particular field and we get some problem, then in that case action research will do their work. Next one is educational research. In educational research we classified into different parts, like historical research, we talk about the past, and we interpret past results to get new discoveries and all. Now the next one is qualitative. This qualitative research basically assume that world is sustainable. We can calculate, we can measure the data. Okay, so likewise we are doing our research through questions, through checklists, through surveys. Now the next one is quantitative research. Quantitative research assume that the world is unstable. Different people has their different opinions, so we are not measure them. We analyze them through the interviews, through the observations and all. Quantitative research basically focus on the behavior study. Okay, now the next one is experimental research. This is very simple. It describes what will happen in the future if certain variables are carefully controlled and manipulated. So that's it. Okay, so in the next is steps of research. All the steps you are going through the entire research process, entire research journey. So the first one is define research problem. So in the define research problem, you are going to select the topic of your interest. Topic of your interest. First, the foremost and the first part is just select your topic in which you want to research. Right. Now the second step is literature review. So go through all the literature and find out the research gap, like what are the difficulty they faced, previous researcher faced, and what are the researches which are pending. Okay, so you find out the which research those are pending in past. What are the difficulties they faced during their research time? So all the literature review you are doing in the second step. Now the third one is hypothesis. Now in the hypothesis, hypothesis basically gives a tentative solution of your problem. Okay, it's not a final solution, it's just a tentative solutions. You can let's take one example, like there's one statement is like smoking is injurious to health, right? So firstly this statement is a hypothesis. Okay, and after testing this statement, this whole line, this smoking injurious to health, after testing it becomes a statement. Okay, so before the testing part it is a hypothesis, and after testing it is a statement. Now the next one is research design. Now you design your research work. Okay, and through the with the help of some methodology. In the methodology, you provide the research procedures, and through the research procedures you design your research design. Okay, now the next one is data collection. In the data collection, data processing and data is there, like what kind of data you are using, how you collect your data, how to represent your data, what are the ethics you are using in the collection of the data. So all the things are included in this part. So the next one is draw analysis. So in the analysis part you correct the interpretation of your data, and the next one is conclusion. In the conclusion part you're throwing off inferences or conclusion, and in the conclusion you give the importance and the contributions and everything, and in the last there is a prepare of the research report. This is the last step. Okay, so most of the time questions comes in this area most of the time. Okay, and the question is like they give your these steps in a jumbled order, and they will ask you write down the proper order of the steps of your research. Okay, so just remember all the steps one by one and their functionality. Okay.